Hi everyone, welcome to episode 105 of the XS Noize Podcast. I'm Mark Millar. Thanks for listening. In this episode, I speak to Ian Broudie from the Lightning Seeds about their first album in 10 years, See You in the Stars. If you missed the previous episode, I spoke to Robbie Furs of The Big Pink.
When Milo's reaction of like, well, I've played Wembley Stadium, I've done this. And I said, well, you know, we supported you at Wembley Stadium. I want to headline Wembley Stadium. So like, I'm not done. You know what I mean? And I said, I'm going to carry on. I'm going to carry on and take this up a level. So in the back of my head, I always, thought I was, that this was going to be a future for me. That I was going to, do another record. And I, in my opinion, getting to LA was like, my kind of fresh start. I went there with the intention to write the third record. That was kind of my impetus to get there to do that record, or this record. You always knew that it was going to come back to me at some point. I had more to say. I felt like I had to take. I felt that we did such a great job on the first record, and I feel that the second record was good, but it just didn't quite, delivered for me personally. So I felt like I needed to sort of take all the Big Pink sound to the next level. I thought I hadn't really achieved it, at that point, which I hope I've done with the new record.
So check it out. And if you like the podcast, please subscribe for free and share it with your friends. If you want up-to-date music news, album reviews and interviews, then check out our main website at xsnoize.com. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Search for the tag at XS Noize Music. Here's XS Noize writer Daniel Lynch with a taste of what's been on the website this week.
In the reviews section, Michael Barron has been listening to Dropkick Murphys' new album, This Machine Still Kills Fascists. The Celtic punk legends were given access to unreleased lyrics written by Woody Guthrie and used these across the album. Michael says it's a dignified and honourable tribute to Guthrie, as Dropkick Murphys expertly find the balance between their own sound and Guthrie's folk. 8 out of 10. There's new music streaming on the site from excellently named Cork band Emperor of Ice Cream. London-based Pretty Sick have released their new album, and there's new music from Neil Young and Crazy Horse. Head to our gig section for the latest tour dates from Bono, who's taken on a 14-date run to mark the release of his memoir. Paul Heaton and Jackie Abbott will tour Ireland in February 23, and there's new dates from Dermot Kennedy and Tori Amos. Ryan McMullen will reopen the legendary Mandela Hall in Belfast later in October. All the details are at xsnoize.com.
It's been more than a decade since the Lightning Seeds released a new album, but this October they release See You in the Stars, their first album in 10 years, alongside a 14-date UK tour kicking off on October 27th in Cambridge. In this interview, Ian Broudie talks about why the album took so long, the upcoming tour, producing bands such as Echo the Bunnymen and The Coral, the football anthem Three Lions, and lots more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the XS Noize Podcast with Ian Broudie from the Lightning Seeds. Hi Ian, welcome to the XS Noize Podcast.
Great to be here, nice talking to you.
It's great to have you. Going back to the start, can you remember the first band or artist that made you pay attention to music?
I think when I was a kid, obviously it was a long time ago for a start, and I was in Liverpool. So when I was about 6 or 7, the early 60s in Liverpool. So obviously the Beatles were, from Liverpool, a phenomenon. So there was a lot of Beatles around, and so I do think of them, all my life. They've been pretty much, a big musical thing in there. But I had like a little transistor radio, a little white transistor radio, one of the little earpieces. And there used to be a station called Radio Caroline. And I used to listen to that a lot, when I should have been listening to other stuff at school, and I'd have the little speaker, so I'd be hearing, I don't know, the Small Faces, Pink Floyd. I really remember, Emily play, and Days of Pearly Spencer, all these old songs, like The Byrds, all these guitar-y songs. And I think they were, it was like heaven to me. It was like, what is this? I was obsessed from a really early age.
What was it that inspired you to pick up the guitar and learn it?
Do you know what? My brothers had guitars, and my brothers could both play guitar. And one of them used to love, Bob Dylan. And the other one was more Hendrix, liked Hendrix and that, and they both have their mates in either bedroom. And, I used to sort of nick records from both of them and listen to them and play. And they played guitar, so I felt like, well, I want to learn guitar. I'd take a guitar out of one of their rooms. Like, they were older than me, and I'd just mess about on it and learn to play. And I taught myself to play, really. I can't remember not playing the guitar. I must have been, must have started just messing about with it when I was about 7 or 8. And that, when I was 11, 12, 13, I suppose I could play a bit. And then I just, I don't remember not playing the guitar, really.
Well, you talked about the Beatles, and there was the whole Mersey beat scene, but you were involved in probably the next big scene in Liverpool, in the late 70s and the early 80s, which evolved from Eric's, the club. It's remarkable how many great bands and artists came from there. There was Echo and the Bunnymen, the Teardrop Explodes, Pete Burns. And you joined big in Japan as a teenager with Bill Drummond, who went on to form the KLF, and Holly Johnson, who went on to form Frankie. So what can you remember? What was so great about those times? Why do you think so many great bands evolved from there?
Well, I think we were a bunch of misfits, really. We were really, a raggedy bunch of different types of people. Some of the people you've mentioned there, as friends of mine, would be opposites. It's not like everyone was kind of the same, but we were all a bit of a gang, unified by the fact that we didn't really fit in anywhere else or there, really, And I think Eric's was run by a guy called Roger Eagle, and he'd been a DJ in the 60s playing Northern Soul in a club called the Twisted Wheel, and he'd ended up in Liverpool. He had a great record collection and a vast musical knowledge, and he booked great bands to this little club. But also, he was good at letting some of us kids in free, and he wanted us to be educated musically. I think that was part of his thing. He wanted certain people there to hear it and stuff. And I suppose we were lucky to be included in that. And then it became so that if you were into music and were creative, you would be drawn to that place if you were in Liverpool. And you would have a chance to express yourself with other people. And, that's, worth a lot. And I suppose it's sort of probably came from that, really, a lot, I think, and the times, I suppose, everyone was unemployed. There wasn't much, pretty run down Liverpool. So we all had a lot of time on our hands. And Liverpool is the kind of place where people, a bit like Ireland, actually. Well, a lot like Ireland. Music's important to people. You go into a pub, it's music, it's a jukebox or someone playing, and people talk about music. And it's, I always remember talking about music all the time with people. And that might just be the people I knew, but I don't think so. I think, it might be Jim Reeves on the jukebox, but because some old dear was putting Jim Reeves on, you heard it. And I think, sometimes when you're in places, you go to gigs and it's all people of a certain age and a certain vibe. But I think in Liverpool and in Ireland, actually, you go to gigs and it's all different people might like that music, and that's where they're drawn there. So you get different types of people, and there's more cross-pollination sort of thing, And I think that was very much the case at that time in Liverpool. And it was for me personally, it was a good moment for music, I suppose, because punk rock was just happening in the sense that, and it was the new. So I got to see great bands, even though it was a little club of 400 people. You got to see amazing bands, And for me, the English punk stuff was okay at the Clash and the Piss. I liked it, I preferred some of the northern stuff, the Buzzcocks and the Fall and all that. But the thing that I loved really was New York. I'd been a massive Velvet Underground fan. And when the Ramones happened, you know, it was like a revelation to me. I loved it. And then so at that time, you know, I loved Talking Heads, Television, the Ramones, Patti Smith, Richard Hell, coming down from the New York Dolls, Iggy Pop. A lot of the stuff I loved was New York or at least America. I know Iggy Pop's Detroit, but it felt New Yorky. So a lot of that stuff was quite, you know, quite important to me. And I got to see, I think, all of those bands and Blondie in Eric's, you know, which is mad really, you know, but you did get to see them in this little club. And because I rehearsed in there for my band, you know, I'd help them load the equipment in and I'd get to talk to them, see them sound check and all that. So it was very much, that was a bit of a golden moment and an inspiring moment. And it also felt like, you know, if you heard, I don't know, Pink Floyd or something, who I loved, you didn't feel like you were capable of doing that really. But being amongst those other bands in that scene, and Bowie seemed to me, I loved Bowie, but he seemed like a genius from outer space that I could never be that, you know. But with that scene, you felt like, no, I could do this, I think, you know, I might be able to do this. So it was kind of inspiring in a different way.
But initially you fell into producing rather than songwriting. You produced Echo the Bunnymen's debut album, Crocodiles, which is an absolutely fantastic record. So how did you fall into the production side of things first? Well,
Echo and the Bunnymen were my mates, and everyone was forming bands, and they didn't really do a gig, or they did one gig and everything. And the Bunnymen, you know, just had the drum machine initially, and the three of them. And I remember seeing them and just being knocked out, you know. It was just like, whoa, wow, what's that? You know, that's much better than usual, you know, in a very dysfunctional way, it seemed to me. And that was obviously the producer in me. So, and everyone was saying, oh, you've seen them? You know, they're great. And I was thinking, they are great in this awfully dysfunctional way. You know, it's not right, but it's fantastic. And then I just, cause they were my mates, and they signed a major label agreement. And, you know, I think they'd been in with the producer, it hadn't worked out and all that. And they were playing some of their songs. And I just made a few comments about them that I thought they weren't sat right how they should be. And, you know, I didn't think anything of it. And then I got this call from Bill Drummond, who was their manager at that time. And he was like, you know, had a chat to Warner Brothers, the label. And, you know, we'd like you to, you know, the band say you've got some really good ideas about the songs, you know, do you fancy producing a couple of tracks? And I was like, no, you know, I don't really want to do that, particularly I'm a songwriter, you know, that's not what I want to do. And then Bill phoned me back a couple of times, and then about the third time he called, he said, well, what about if you don't produce them, but your alter ego from another dimension produces them? And we came up with the name Kingbird, and we decided Kingbird would produce them. So I kind of got talked into it in that way. And that first couple of recordings I did with them, or maybe all, they don't say Ian Broudie, they say Kingbird production. But actually that took me down a bit of a wormhole for the next few years, where people were asking me to produce. And it was hard to say no, especially when you've got nothing going on other than that. And I sort of ended up a reluctant producer, you know. And then I got to a moment where I was like, you know, I'm getting older here, and I'm a songwriter, and I'm not being allowed to be a songwriter. I've stepped into the wrong tunnel, and I need to make a stand. And everyone was trying to talk me out of it, really. So I decided just to stop producing. And it was a bit of a gamble, really. And I just recorded some songs at home. And then in those days, you know, to get a record, it wasn't like now, you had to get a major record label to put a record out. And to get one, you had to do some gigs, and they would come up and see you. And if they liked what they saw, you know, they'd sign you. So around Liverpool, bands like the Lars and Rain and the Real People were all getting record contracts. But I didn't have a band, you know. So I phoned up this bloke who I'd met when I was producing Michael Head and a band he was in called Pale Fountains. And he said to this guy, was a roguish 60s kind of guy with a big cigar. And, he took me to one side and said to me, you know, if you ever have some songs, you know, send them to me because, you know, I love what you do with the production and all that, you know. So I sent him these songs more in, you know, not thinking it would. And he phoned me back and he said, you know, I love these songs. They're great, you know, and he said, this song, Pure, you know, let's put it out. And I was like, well, we need a record label, you know. And he said, you know, I'll just have 200 pressed up and I'll get Rough Trade to sell them. And we'll hire a fella to take it into a few radio stations. So it was a very inauspicious beginning, really, you know. And then Pure was this kind of miracle that just changed my life, really. It just came out and it hung around and it'd sell 200 copies and have some more made. And then it'd get played a bit and played some more. And every time it might go in the charts, they'd run out of records so it wouldn't go in the charts. And then it stayed around and started getting played in America and in France. And it just gradually built up to being a big hit that wasn't really in the charts because there weren't enough records, but was on the radio and was all over. And that kind of gave me a doorway and a platform to be a songwriter and to make. And I was very unprepared, really, because I didn't have a band. I didn't do a gig until the third album. But it was just, you know, there was Pure and then Life of Riley and Sense were good songs and they kind of hits on college radio in America. And it just sort of, it was a bit of a sort of, it was totally dysfunctional, I'll use that word again. No band, didn't know what, you know, wasn't prepared. When Pure was a hit in America, should have really gone out there and toured, but didn't want to sing in public, you know. And, you know, eventually grew up in public, you know, most people get to sing in little pubs and get to know how to do it. I had to sort of sing to sold out Lightning Seeds shows and learn how to sing as I was going. But it all worked out.
Can you remember the first time you got on stage and had to perform live for the first time?
I was terrified to gig. I was really scared, and they'd been trying to get me to do it for years. And then I signed a deal with Sony, and I wasn't on an indie anymore. And the guy Rob, who signed me, was right. You've got to play live. You've got to promise me you're going to play live. And at the time, I think I was producing maybe Terry Hall's solo album, and so it was great because he said, "Well, let's do a tour together." And it sort of eased me in because it was my mate getting up to sing. It made it a little bit more feasible that I could do it, you know. So we did a tour together and that kind of got me on stage, really.
Well, the Lightning Seeds, you're about to release your new album, See You in the Stars, in October. It's been over 10 years since your last one. So why did you feel it was time to put new music out now? I
think, emotionally, I just wasn't capable of making a Lightning Seeds album for a long time. I tried to make one in 2007 that came out. And it just, I wished I hadn't done it, really. Even though there's a few tracks I really like on it, it's not really, there's a certain blend of things that are Lightning Seeds, I think, that I always try and, you know, I think it's really difficult to write a positive song without it being banal or trite or just a bit stupid. It's a hard thing. It's easy to write a sad song. And it's hard to do that with an up song, a positive song. And sometimes sad songs can be positive and elating, you know, and it's just a certain blend that I couldn't get. I think events in my life emotionally had overtaken me and I wasn't really capable of it. And I lost interest, lost focus, slipped down the league, I think, out of the Premier League into the Championship. Then I started, when Riley, my son, started playing guitar with me, I really wanted him to experience being in a great band, and, you know, so we started to get gigs together and the band together a lot more. And, it sort of culminated in us starting to be really good, I think, and starting to feel like a headline band again. And then, you know, it felt like it would be a shame not to do an album now that the band was really good. And then I wrote a couple of songs and finished them. And when I listened to them, I was like, these are Lightning Seed songs again, you know. And so I was able to do another album. And I would like to do another album fairly soon, you know. I wouldn't leave it that long again. If I do another one, it would be soon. But you do open yourself up to a lot of, you're vulnerable when you do an album. I wasn't sure I wanted to do that. It's just got to take it. So you have to know you're going to get criticized and you're getting whatever. And people are going to say nice things, but you have to be in a position where you can stand behind what you've done wholeheartedly, You just have to be like that, And I do feel like that about this new record. I'm very proud of it. It ain't, I know people say I'm perfect. I'm never searching for perfection, and it's far from perfect. But I think it's personal. I'm proud of it. And I think I'm a bit braver on this album. I usually find myself covering things up with lots of overdubbing and, the vocals and lyrically. And I think I haven't done that this time. The songs are very personal, but they are positive. And I've tried to be a bit more confident in it.
So let's talk about some of the songs. The first track released from the album was the Feel Good Sunshine. So why did you decide to put that track out first? Do you think it represented the album best?
No, actually. But I really like that song. That's one of the songs I don't feel I got it quite right, to be honest. I'm still fiddling about with it. And some of the band said to me the other day, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm just trying." And they said, "It's out. Stop writing it. It's written." And sometimes that's one of those songs that was hard to let go of. I think it was a good starting. It was a little less, it was a bit more straightforward than a lot of the album probably. But I think it was, it's a song that, I don't think it, represents the album necessarily, but it felt like a good song. The sun was shining actually when it came out. And it is a song about, every day is a new day and a new chance. And every night you die and you get born again. And I think I wrote that song in the pandemic, and I was getting very stressed and waking up in the night. And then, I'd come up here actually and sit out there, watch the sun come up, with a cup of tea and that. And everything felt better. And the night terrors go. And you think every day is a new chance, And I think that's what that song is about,
No, it's a great track. My favourite song on the album is Emily Smiles, which was co-written, as you just mentioned, with your friend Terry Hall from The Specials, who you also wrote Jollification's Lucky You with.
Yep.
It's a fantastic track.
Do
you enjoy writing with Terry?
Yeah, well, we're mates, and sometimes we're both busy and we don't get time to hang out as much as we could, really. And it was, we were both, you couldn't do any gigs. So both kind of around and that. And it was really nice. It was really nice to just spend a couple of days catching up and writing a song. And I feel like sometimes when we get together and write a song, something good happens. We always seem to get there in the end and it's a good one. And I love Emily Smiles. I think that and Great to Be Alive might be my two favourites, actually. Yeah, so it was really nice to be writing with him. And I do really like the song, so, and it's a song that resonates with me.
And you mentioned Great to Be Alive. You also co-wrote that with James Scully, who you've also produced in the choral, right? You produced our debut album.
I don't stray far from home, do I?
But look how far James has come. He's turned into a fantastic producer and songwriter.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it was lovely to work together in the reverse capacity, and he kind of produced it, and helped me finish off the sort of the end of it. And really, actually, James was very supportive because I wasn't very confident about doing a record. I was in two minds. He kept saying to me, "You finished any songs?" And then he was like, "Look, I'm in the studio producing things all the time. Just come up for a couple of days and get one finished, and I'll record it, And I did that. And that was the first one I recorded for the album. And when I came home, I was like listening to it. I was like, this is Lightning Seeds, I'm able to write that way again. And it's funny because that song in a strange way, when I wrote the first verse, it was all about when I looked at it and I was going to write the chorus. And I thought, this is about, every month you're a slightly less effective version than you were the month before, the year before, or, and I'm kind of talking about how, the charm of youth and it's hard for me to believe, you've got to believe, and then, and then I sort of came to the chorus and I thought, is it silly for me to still dream? I'm getting on a bit. I still have these hopes and dreams. And then I thought, this is such a first world problem, and you're spoiled, it's great to just be alive. It's great to be alive. And I thought, well, that's the chorus, whisper in my ear, tell me again, it's great to be alive, and then the second verse is kind of like, forget the first verse. It's great. But in many ways that was, it was kind of how I felt. So it was kind of like where I was really, and it enabled me to move past that and write the rest of the album.
It's fantastic to hear a song being written like that after the past few years we've all had, with the anxiety and the pandemic and stuff. And, you've come along and you've written this fantastic song. It is great to be alive, but we're past that,
Yeah.
Let's look forward.
Yeah. That's just, we're here. Yeah.
Yeah. And you also wrote Live to Love You with James as well.
Yeah. So I went back and we finished that one, up there and recorded it. And, we finished off a bit of the lyric and recorded it. And, it was lovely. It was just done. They were probably, some of the album was done really quickly. Those, that was done in 2 days. I think I might have done a bit more at home on it. Added a few things afterwards. Great to Be Alive, I added a couple of things, but the main part of them were both done in 2 days each. And some songs like Losing You and stuff like that were done very quickly and just in this room, just me. And then there's others like Emily Smiles that were a bit more, took a while. The band are playing on, we rehearsed them a bit, did them in a slightly different way. And I wanted the album to go from kind of homemade to quite natural, and then to a bit more Lightning Seedsy produced. And I think that's all there within it,
What I loved when I heard the song, when I was listening to the song Green Eyes, there's a musical nod to Pure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Why did you stick that in?
Well, actually the whole album was a little bit looking back at my previous recordings musically and stuff. And like with that song, I felt like I was writing the words, I'd written the words, and playing it on it. And I thought, this is the ending to Pure, really, lyrically. It's kind of maybe not the end, but it's a related, it's an apology in a funny way. And it's related. It was the same kind of thing I was thinking about. And then I thought, I'm going to shadow it musically as Pure. And I think I then started on the whole album taking bits of my life musically and thinking, this reminds me of me then, and me then, and me then. And the way I made them sound, they're all a bit like that. That's the most obvious, I think. But they're all kind of hinting at some parts of my past in a way. But, very kind of move on as well.
Which song on the album do you feel most connected to?
I'm actually pretty connected to a lot of them, as I say, they're quite a personal bunch of songs. And I've kind of left them, what's the word? Quite direct, hopefully. I feel like I'm being quite direct. I was surprised they sound quite innocent in a way, my voice sounds, which I was worried I might sound a bit, like not like I used to or whatever, but I think I was quite pleased at the way I think they communicate quite clearly. And, there's moments of, I connect, funnily enough, one song where I probably, might not be the most positive song in the world. There's two of them on the album, but it was really how I felt. And I sort of just let myself, and I did it very quickly on my own in ear. And, I get a lot of anxiety, and especially the thought of having an album out. And I get this thing where you wake up, and I think it's called catastrophization. And you just feel like something terrible is going on, and then what is the terrible thing? And you just have to focus really. And I think I woke up one day and I came up here and I wrote the song Permanent Danger. And I think that was about that really, and about, I think I like that song. I wouldn't say my favourites are the others, but I think that is proper me. That just sounds like me. To me, that sounds like me, you know.
You've written so many great songs, but is there one you think is underrated? Maybe one that slipped under the radar?
Sweetest Soul Sensation, I really like. We had a track on Tilt called that, and we play it live now sometimes. And it feels like if you'd done it a year later, people would have got it more. But I think when we did that album Tilt, it was a real disconnect. And also, it was me really. I think I was trying to be someone I wasn't. So I was stepping out on myself a bit too much. But some of the songs on there, I do really like it. And that's a song that I hear people, you know, doing the same thing that I do in that song quite a lot. So I quite like that song.
When you're writing songs, what's more important to you? What's more important to nail first, a good lyric or a good melody?
Well, it's intertwinable, you know, and a good lyric can sound great with the right melody and terrible with the wrong one, and vice versa. But for me, I never consider myself a singer. I'm not a great singer. So I feel like I have to have a great melody. So I really need a great melody. If you're not going to be a great singer, you need to sing something that's good. You know, some people could just sing, you know, I made a cup of tea before, and it sounds fancy. You imagine Nick Cave, I made a cup of tea. It would just sound good, you know. I wouldn't sound good singing that. But, so I need something good to sing. And I think lyrics are difficult for me. It's not something, I'm not one of those guys, you know, just, you know, and I never know what they're about. And I always start thinking I'd like to write something like Ray Davies, a little vignette. And they just never end up like that. They always end up about me or about they always end up a lot more personal. You know, so nowadays, lyrics are very, very important to me when I listen to stuff. I think the lyrics are crucial when I listen. There's been times in my life when maybe they weren't, you know. I mean, I used to sing all the lyrics wrong and didn't really care, you know, singing and write a load of nonsense over someone's song, you know, completely different, wrong words. But, I think the lyrics mean, you know, I think it means, yeah, I think I'm quite focused on both. I am focused on both, to be honest, you know.
Well, I think you're a great singer. You know, your voice is very distinctive. When a Lightning Seeds song comes on the radio, you know straight away who it is.
Thank you.
You know, it's very unique. Well, you're about to kick off a 14-date UK tour in October. You're starting off in Cambridge. So how much are you looking forward to getting back out onto the road?
I'm really looking forward to it. We haven't had a chance. You know, obviously we're going to play all the hits everyone wants to hear, and maybe some tracks from albums that we don't usually play that people like to hear. And we get to play 3 or 4 new ones as well, which we haven't had the chance to do for a long time because there haven't been any. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I just feel like right now, and it's great because Badly Drum Boy is on the bill as well. And I think we complement each other quite well. I think he's, you know, someone I really like myself to listen to. And I think it just turns into a really good night to see those both bands. It'll be a night full of eccentric songs, I would say, you know, and should be, you know, good night. So I can't wait really. I can't wait to get out there.
Have you settled on a permanent band lineup now?
Oh yeah, we've had the band for a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, and I love my band. I love everyone in the band. I'm the happiest I've been really ever. I think it's the best incarnation of the Lightning Seeds, really, you know. And but we've been playing in this lineup for a couple of years, 3 maybe.
Well, a couple of years ago, you went on tour to celebrate the 25th anniversary of your most successful album, Jollification, by playing the album in full. You played the Limelight in Belfast, which was a fantastic show. So, is there a certain album you would love to see played live by an artist or band?
Wow. I wouldn't mind seeing Revolver, but I don't think that's going to happen. It's about unless you go to the Cavern and you see some version of not the Beatles do it, which can be quite good. But, yeah, I don't know. I mean, there is a lot of albums that I like. The bands that exist right now, I'd love to see Village Green Preservation Society done really like the album with Ray and Dave and whoever's left of the Kinks, really. I would love to see that. I love that album. I think it's a real milestone in music. So yeah, I think maybe that one.
If you were to recommend one of your albums to someone who had never heard the Lightning Seeds before, what album would you tell them to start with?
This one, because it's now. And I'd say, listen to this one and go back to, miss out the one in between, go back to Dizzy Heights, Jollification, Cloud Cuckoo, Land Sense.
You've achieved incredible success in your 33 years as a recording artist, from producing, writing songs and performing in the Lightning Seeds. Looking back, Ian, what's been your highlights so far?
You know, I've been very lucky, you know. I loved working with the Coral. I loved working with the Bunnymen. I feel like it was an honour to sort of join those bands for a bit and be the producer. Lightning Seeds has been great, you know. It's been like, as I say, Pure was like a miracle that was happening around me. I hate to mention it in Ireland, but Three Lions, you know, was a spectacular moment, really odd and sort of over there for the band, different, but still in its own way, you know, quite, you know, sort of tumultuous. And, you know, there's been gigs. I loved playing the Hillsborough concert we did a while ago. Good playing Glastonbury, you know, getting to go around the world. I could go on. I mean, I've been really lucky, you know.
Well, Three Lands is a great song, and with the World Cup just around the corner, we're going to be hearing it everywhere again. You know, you could never have imagined that it would take off and it would be so successful, and it's a staple now in culture.
Yeah, hopefully it's you know, I've tried to write something that was not jingoistic, and is about, you know, it was meant to be about fans, not about a team, and I think it is. It's just about being a fan of any sport, any nationality, anything, and I think that is what it's about, really. So yeah, hopefully in some form, you know, it is, you know, I'm proud of it, and I sort of can't believe how well, you know, that it's still around after all this time. It's, you know, it's a lovely thing.
At the start of the interview, you mentioned Michael Head from the Pale Fountains, who was also in Shack. Now, you produced the first Shack album, Zilch, which is actually one of my favourite albums.
I can't take credit for that. I didn't really. I know it says I did, but I didn't. It just some sort of. I did work on some of the tracks with him. It was it's a strange thing, really. So I didn't mix the album, and I recorded, I think, 4 tracks. Where I think they were in recording. My memory is quite shady on it, but I think they were in recording for a long time, and it didn't work out. And the record company, which was actually the guy I was talking about who put Pure out, you know, I didn't want to give them any more money because they just were getting stoned, I think. And, you know, and then Mick came around to my house and said, you know, would you do this? Would you do, you know, and then, so under a lot of restrictions, we did a couple of tracks. And then, cause we were mates at the time, I kind of went along while a guy was mixing the album, and he mixed the tracks that I did. And I kind of was around for the mixing for the other tracks, and where I could help, I did. So I was kind of involved, but I didn't master it, and I didn't mix it, and I only did a few tracks with it. But for some reason it says produced by me. So I can't take credit for that, really. It's you know, I just can't take credit, but I definitely was involved, but I wouldn't say I was in charge.
No, I really enjoyed it. It's a great album, and Mick's new album, his latest album, is fantastic. Just a few more questions, Ian. I like to ask my guests the following questions. For us music fans, music's the soundtrack to our memories. Which song or album, when you listen to it, brings back the best memories for you?
I think, you know, it's funny, you know, music is a little capsule of time, isn't it? And feelings of the time that can come back for you, you know. Or sometimes, like one of my favorite songs is a Sinatra song, and it's arranged by Nelson Riddle. And it's called "It Was a Very Good Year." And it's just all about his life, you know, and that song. So maybe I think all my songs are about moments and worrying about losing the moments and not grasping the time, not being in the moment, and, you know, don't sell the dreams you should be keeping, you know, Emily Smart, they're all really about that in a way. And, you know, from Life O'Reilly, worrying about what I'll do when he arrives, you know, to, you know, they're kind of all about that. And I forgot what I was going to say here about the song. And I think, so a song that, you know, is always in my life, you know, the Beatles in my life, just that really gets me every time.
I'm the same. I love that song. It's amazing.
I think it might be one of the best songs ever written. Yeah.
Out of all the music in your collection, which artist or band do you have the most albums by?
Wow, I wonder. Yeah, nowadays you don't even have an album by many people because it's tracks that you like, you know what I mean? More than albums in a funny way. There aren't that many albums that I love these days. But I mean, I used to have Love, The Doors, The Beatles. I think I probably got every Beatles album, probably. And I probably bought them all about 3 times in various forms with the big issues and that, you know. Bowie. Probably there are certain, you know, Lou Reed, Velvet Underground. Probably those are the ones that, probably they'd be the ones I'd have most. I suppose it's the biggest artists, isn't it? And you end up buying, you know, a lot of albums by them because they're, you know, a lot of Stones albums, I think, as well, yeah. So they're probably the most obvious ones, you know. Just trying to think if there's anyone more. Some bands only make 2. I mean, it's a bit of an unfair question, actually, because it's only certain bands who get to make 7, 8 albums, isn't it? A lot of bands only get to make 2. I've only got 1 Sex Pistols album.
Well, yeah, and I could say
I might have bought more. So, yeah.
Which song or album is your guilty pleasure?
It's hard to know because I'm not really guilty about much, but I have got a playlist called Guilty Pleasures that I put on my Spotify. But when I look at them, I'm like, they're all fine. You know? I'll look at it now and tell you.
What I normally say is, if you were in a car and you were playing the album or song, would you have the windows up or down?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Do you know when Riley was little, I was driving and he was in the back, and to get him to sleep, I used to put these tapes on, and it was like 1 times 1 is 1, 1 times 2, you know, and he was kind of there in the back, and I pulled along this car and I had the window open, but where they were, they couldn't see the back of the car, so it was just me in shades, and it was these 2 guys looking down, and I thought, what are they looking at? And it was blaring out, 121 is 1, 2 times. I thought, I remember driving off thinking, I thought, you must think, you know, that guy is not cool.
Or I don't like the Lightning Seeds new stuff.
So there's my guilty pleasure, actually, yeah.
Well, just one more actually just came into my head. I'm a Liverpool fan. I know you are. Have you ever thought about writing a song for Liverpool for to be chanted on the terraces of Anfield?
I never have, actually. No, I don't think you could ever, you know, You'll Never Walk Alone is the one, isn't it? I would never, it's such a genius song, you know what I mean? So, and that's the only other song apart from 3 Lions that's about the fans. You know, it's not about the team. It's about walking together, whether that's the fans and the team, but it's about unity. And it's not about we're going to win. It's not we are the champions. It's a song about community and unity. You know, and I feel like I've kind of written my attempt at a fan's song. So I don't think a club would like a song that didn't mention winning and stuff, would they? They wouldn't choose, if you left it up to a club to choose, they wouldn't choose You'll Never Walk Alone. They'd want something like We Are the Champions by Queen, But, so I'll leave it to Jerry to clean that one up.
I know every time I hear it, the hairs just go in the back of my mind. It's fantastic. And I hate it when especially if you're watching the matches on TV. The commentators always talk all over it. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's my questions finished. Thanks very much for taking the time to do this.
That's very nice talking to you. Thank you for taking the time and putting it out. I'm glad you like the album. Thank you.
Yes, I really do. And hopefully it won't be over 10 years until we hear the next one.
I hope not. Yeah, I think I'd better get on with it, really. Great. All right.
Well, have a good day, then. Thank you.
And you. I hope we bloody play better soon.
All right, Ian. Take it easy.
Yeah. Try.
Bye.